Ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Benjamin Rouse, and a little piece of music that you obviously know very well indeed. Well, welcome once again to any late arrivals who've just joined us here at the Military Aviation Museum for this very special evening of aerial activity in the skies and musical wonderment from the stage here at the museum site down at Pungo. We're going to see a collection of aircraft from the museum, just a small selection actually of the collection this evening because time and the sunset against us. A couple of these aircraft are the only flying examples left in existence in the world. Others are very, very rare indeed, like the first item this evening, a Junkers Ju-52 from the other side of the pond, nicknamed Iron Annie, used extensively as both a military and civilian transport aircraft, and a very distinctive fuselage. It's all corrugated down the fuselage and over the wings to aid the airflow over the wing surface and down the fuselage, and a very distinctive appearance with its three engines, two mounted traditionally on each wing and one up on the nose. Originally these would have been BMW engines, so the current example that's at home here at Pungo has Wright radial engines on it now. This particular example was built for the Spanish Air Force and flown by them. It was built in 1949, although examples of this were used by the Germans during the Second World War. And the engines, as I say, have been replaced once it came over to this side of the Atlantic. Originally, it was sold to the Confederate Air Force over in Texas and flown by them. That was in 1976. It eventually ended up here at Pungo, and this Iron Annie is one now of only 10 examples of this wartime aircraft left in existence anywhere in the world, and the museum's Junkers Ju-52 is the only flying example of one of these aircraft in the entire continent of North America. So a very rare aircraft indeed, and a great privilege to be able to see the Junkers Iron Annie flying for us this evening. As I mentioned earlier, most of the music is going to come from films that either have an historical or an aviation, sometimes both, link. And our first piece of music this evening was one such case in point. The novelist Alistair MacLean wrote the novel Where Eagles Dare, and a clever chap he was, because at the same time he wrote the blockbuster screenplay Where Eagles Dare. It starred the late Richard Burton and your very own Clint Eastwood, and featured some stunning photo backdrops where it was filmed in southern Bavaria. The filming took place in 1968. There are a few bloopers in the film, as there often are in most movies, even with all the computer technology today. The filmmakers don't always get it right, and they didn't in 1968. There are several sets of shots of the backdrop where there was virgin snow in one shot, and immediately in the next one, there were footpaths through the snow. There was also a helicopter that was used in the film. Now, the Germans did have helicopters. They had about 40 of them in the Second World War. But this was an American example, a Bell 47, my personal favourite whirlybird that was used in the film. As I say, the Iron Annie, the only example in North America, she flies very, very slowly. So let's enjoy the Ju-52 Iron Annie to the music of Where Eagles Dare by the legendary British film composer Ron Goodwin. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra conducted by Benjamin Rouse and Where Eagles Dare, and the Junkers Ju-52 from the Military Aviation Museum. Okay, we're turning the clock back just a little bit further in aviation time now, and linking with the film The Great Waldo Pepper. Featured in a key scene in The Great Waldo Pepper was an English Sopwith Camel biplane and a German Fokker DR-1 triplane. Now, the Military Aviation Museum here at Pungo does have a Camel, a very rare example of a Sopwith Camel, an English-built fighter from the First World War. That is grounded at the moment, having some tweaks done to the rigging. So in its place, we're going to see an even rarer example of a Sopwith aircraft, that being the Sopwith 1.5 Strutter. But first to the DR-1, very lightweight but very strong. Its claim to fame was that it had 3 wings, hence being classified as a triplane. Method in the madness, you see. And also claimed to fame that it was the aerial mount of one Baron von Richthofen, and his aircraft was painted in a bright red livery. The museum has 4 examples of Fokker DR-1 triplanes. Sadly, there are no original examples left in existence anywhere in the world today, but there are a handful of really well-crafted replicas, 4 of them here at the museum. Talk about being greedy, eh? But they are wonderful aircraft, and if you've been to the World War I flying display earlier in the year, you will have seen these aircraft in the skies. So that's the DR-1. The biplane flying alongside has a 130 horsepower engine. It was the first 2-seater British fighter, and the first British fighter to have a synchronized machine gun that could fire through the propeller. Very, very important is that, because you don't want your bullets chopping the propeller to pieces, which is what happens if it's not synchronized. This was the first British aircraft to have one of these, although German aircraft had had them for some time. Now, the Strutter had a very long range, so she could stay airborne for a long, long time. And that was good, because she could control the French trenches in occupied France. It was used extensively by the British and the French air forces, although, of course, it was the Royal Flying Corps then, because the Royal Air Force hadn't been brought into operation during the First World War. And the Strutter, the 1.5 Strutter, was one of the first aircraft to be used in trials of takeoffs and landings from ships. Indeed, Strutters were used by the American Navy for a short time until carrier decks and steam catapults were introduced. I should point out that when the aircraft land, having completed their displays, they will make a bit of noise, like the Ju-52, because the great thing about the museum here is that these are flying, living examples of the aircraft, and in the interval, you can get up close to these aircraft. You'll be invited to go up alongside. So they're all going to be parked around here. Now, the film The Great Waldo Pepper starred that all-American hero, turned many a lady's heart aflutter, did Robert Redford. Yeah? You know what I'm talking about, ladies, don't you, eh? I can see you nodding down there. He was passed over for flying operations in the First World War and became a barnstormer in the film. And the film features his barnstorming antics. So, in the Pungo skies, the 1.5 Strutter, the DR-1 triplane, the Great Waldo Pepper March by Henry Mancini. March to the Great Waldo Pepper, starring that gentleman who turned many a lady's heart a flutter, and the Sopwith 1.5 Strata, and the triplane from 1917. Now, how about some serious all-American World War II muscle, eh? Do you fancy some of that? 2 incredible aircraft. Both of them played in such an essential role during World War II, especially in the Pacific. And we've got 2 of them in the skies for you this evening. We like to give you more bucks for your bang, or more bangs for your bucks, whichever way you want to look at it. I would never dream of saying anything like that where I come from, of course. We have for you the TBM Avenger from 1944 and the Grumman Wildcat. Typically, the Wildcats accompanied the torpedo bomber, the Avenger, being heavier and slower on carrier-based operations in the Pacific. They were used as torpedo bombers, as I say, the Avengers, and they helped turn the tide of the Pacific War in the Allies' favour. The Avengers came into service in 1942. One was flown by a gentleman you may be familiar with, George H.W. Bush, who not only went on to become US President, but he had an aircraft carrier named after him. Now, how cool is that, eh, to get a ship named after you and be President of the United States of America? This particular example of the Avenger that you'll see taking off in a couple of minutes' time was a late wartime build. It never actually saw combat service, which has helped to keep it in the excellent flying condition she's in today. Although the aircraft was actually flown over the commissioning ceremony for the USS George W. Bush carrier in January 2010 as a mark of historical respect to the President and, of course, to the American Navy too. Now, the Grumman Wildcat was the very first aircraft to really turn the tide of the Second World War for the Americans in the Pacific. Very fast, very rugged, top speed of over 320 miles an hour. It could outpace the Japanese Zero fighters and bombers. And without the Wildcats in service, battles of places like Wake Island, Coral Sea, Guadalcanal, and of course Midway might have been very, very different, certainly in the case of Midway. And this Wildcat is the only most original Wildcat flying anywhere in the world, powered by its original right radial engine, and was actually based just up the road at the airfield at Pungo during its service life. Now, the film based on the Midway battle, which turned the tide of the Pacific War in the Avengers' favour, the Americans' favour, beg my pardon, was put together in a film starring Charlton Heston. What a great sound that is, isn't it, hey? Absolutely fantastic. And there's more to come, I promise you. Eyes left, ladies and gentlemen. The Wildcat beginning her takeoff run now on runway 29 here at Pungo. Here she comes. Look at that. So the TBM Avenger, the Grumman Wildcat, flying to the music, the Midway March from the film by the veteran movie score composer, Mr. John Williams. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Benjamin Rouse, and the Midway March with the TBM Avenger, and the Wildcat from 1944 from the Military Aviation Museum here at Pungo. And don't forget, in the intermission, you'll be able to pop up and get up front and personal with these aircraft behind the stage here. So we're over the pond now to my neck of the woods, over to England, and two quintessentially English airplanes from that period between the war, the two wars, in the 1930s, when if you had the money, life was still good, even though the dark clouds of war were looming over Europe. Both the aircraft that you're going to enjoy in the next few minutes are biplanes, both representative of the aviation of that period leading up to World War II. One is an open cockpit twin-seater biplane, the Tiger Moth, built by de Havilland, originally for the civilian market, although once the war effort got underway, they were pressed into service as basic trainers for the Royal Air Force, and they continued as basic trainers until the early 1950s, in actual fact, when they were replaced by the Chipmunk, also built by de Havilland, and the museum has an example here that flies at other air shows throughout the year. Powered by a Gypsy Major inverted engine, the Tiger Moth trained thousands of Allied pilots. They were built not only in the United Kingdom but also in Canada by de Havilland there, and under license in many, many parts of the world. Over 8,500 of these trainers were built in total during the Second World War. And on the British civilian aviation register, we're probably looking at about 50 or 60 of these still in flying condition on the other side of the pond. Over here, they're a little bit rarer than that, but one of the most popular aircraft in the museum here at Pungo is the Tiger Moth. Also flying in this next sequence, another biplane, but a twin-engined biplane, a six-seater passenger aircraft called the de Havilland Dragon Rapide. I think my all-time favourite aircraft built by de Havilland over the years, even though I managed to clock up something like 140 hours on Tiger Moths in my youth. Now, this beautiful six-seater aircraft, the Rapide biplane, one of the most popular aeroplanes again here at Pungo. And the British royal family purchased one of these in 1935. It was a custom-built example of the Rapide. Prince Edward, the Prince of Wales, reluctantly became king in the 1930s, thanks to one of yours, Mrs. Simpson, yeah, and her antics. Oh, yes. So Prince Edward became king, and he became the first British monarch to fly in an aeroplane when he undertook some royal duties as king after he was coronated. The particular example that we have here, built in 1944, it is in the colours of the English Royal Guards, very distinctive livery. And if you get the chance in the intermission to look on the inside of the aircraft, look for the Royal Crest on the backs of the leather seats. Okay, the music then, featured in the film The King's Speech. And it was at the point where King George VI, as he became, was delivering that very difficult first wartime speech. And the music that you hear was actually in two parts. It was Symphony Number 7, very melancholy at times, but also lifting during what became the difficult parts of the speech. And it then morphed into a piano concerto, Number 5, Opus 73, in E-flat major. We're going to enjoy these two beautifully crafted old dames of English aviation's yesteryear to the music of that Symphony Number 7, the Allegretto in A major, by one Ludwig von Beethoven. Something. Beethoven Symphony No. 7 in A major, Opus 92, the Allegretto, and the de Havilland DH89A Dragon Rapide, the de Havilland DH82 Tiger Moth, gracing the Pungo skies for us this evening. If any of the films that are being mentioned are not familiar to you, particularly the English ones, then you can rent them over here, I'm sure, and they're well worth seeing, because certainly the King's Speech is a very interesting historical reference of that period in time, and the music quite spectacular. And of course it's nice to see these aeroplanes as well, isn't it? It'll take a couple of minutes for them to recover and land on, and we will then continue with an aircraft that is very special to the museum here at Pungo, because it was the very first warbird to be brought into the collection here at the Military Aviation Museum, and it was an aircraft that did a lot for American flyers in the Second World War, and did a lot to, well, make the course of history go the way that it did, which I'm sure we're all very pleased about indeed. The aircraft in question was made famous by the American volunteer group, the Flying Tigers, who flew in Burma December 1941 through July 42, defending the Chinese against the advancing Japanese forces. Now, over a 6-month period, the Flying Tigers destroyed 300 enemy aircraft, losing just 12 of their own. And whilst any loss of any aircraft in wartime is sad, of course, it is a testament to their skill and to the strength of this particular aircraft that they were able to come away with so few losses. As I say, the Kitty Hawk that we have flying in a few minutes' time was the very first warbird aircraft to come into the collection here at Pungo. But it wasn't that simple. The founder just didn't see it on eBay or something like that and thought, that looks nice, I'll put in a bid for that. Oh, no. The P-40, Curtiss P-40 Kitty Hawk, that is now such an important part of the museum here in Virginia Beach, was actually discovered abandoned and rotting away deep inside the Arctic Circle in Russia back in 1992. What was left of the aircraft was gathered up and painstakingly rebuilt over several years, and no doubt a few pictures of Uncle Sam had to pass over the counter in the process to make that happen, because obviously buying these sort of aircraft isn't cheap, keeping them isn't cheap, keeping them flying for display purposes so that we can all enjoy them, phenomenally expensive. You might as well get the pilot to have a whole wad of $50 bills and go down the end of the runway and just throw them into the air every time you start one of these things up. Incredibly difficult to keep them flying. And it's a testament to the ground crews here, of course, who do so much work, the staff and the volunteers, without whom the museum couldn't actually continue. And of course, without your patronage as well, coming to events like this, very important. And it's a wonderful resource to have on your doorstep here at Virginia Beach. Now, this particular aircraft was in the vicinity of Russia because it was part of the Lend-Lease agreement that the United States had with the United Kingdom in the Second World War, and it was there to defend Russia against German invasion, which is how it came to be ended up in rusting piles inside the Arctic Circle. Painted to resemble the Kitty Hawk flown by David Lee Tex Hill, who of course led the famous mission over the Salween Gorge. We'll see the Kitty Hawk in all her glory in just a couple of minutes, whilst we enjoy Jerry Yagan, the museum's founder, just running down the engines here on that Dragon Rapide, and the Tiger Moth taxiing in alongside as well. Now, the movie 1941, said to be Spielberg's most underrated movie, a wartime spoof was this film. John Wayne and Charlton Heston were asked to appear in it. They said no, it's too unpatriotic. The music that you're going to hear, said to be Spielberg's favourite march. In the sky then, the very first airplane in the museum's collection here at Pungo. And from the stage, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Benjamin Rouse, playing the march from 1941 by John Williams.
Perfect timing. So the Curtis P40 Kitty Hawk there, and the march from 1941 from the film. That, as I say, both John Wayne and Charlton Heston turned down roles in because they said it would be unpatriotic. It was Well, a tale centred on Los Angeles after the attack on Pearl Harbor, which is why Heston and Wayne thought that it would be unpatriotic. It starred Dan Aykroyd, the late John Belushi, John Candy, Christopher Lee. It was a very popular film, although it didn't raise that much money for Spielberg or his film studio. And as I said earlier, said to be his most underrated film. Interesting to note, the film opens with a woman swimming off the California coast, only to discover a Japanese submarine surfaces underneath her. And that sets the tone for the film if you haven't seen it. Interesting to note that the actress who played the swimmer was already known to you if you've been to the cinema a few years before, because she was Susan Backlinie, and she was the actress who was the first subterranean victim in Spielberg's blockbuster Jaws. I've lost track as to how many Jaws films there have been now over the years, but she was the first victim of the shark off the New England coast in his original film Jaws. And that march, as I said earlier, was Spielberg's all-time favourite march. So there we go. Are you enjoying yourselves, by the way, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't it absolutely fantastic to have a world-class orchestra like the Virginia Symphony Orchestra and a conductor of the magnitude of Benjamin Rouse here on this little field at Pungo? And how fantastic to see these living historic aviation pieces of history that are performing for us this evening. And if your appetite has been whetted and you'd like to find out more about the museum, it's open 364 days of the year. They close for Christmas Day. Come on, we all need a day off every now and then. But the museum is open throughout the year. And on almost every day you can come here and there'll be some flying activity, even if it isn't an organised flying display. And during the intermission, we'll open up some of the barriers so you can have a close look at some of the aircraft that have been performing for us this evening. You get to enjoy those up close and have some pictures taken with them. Okay, so the Curtiss Kitty Hawk is now back safely down on terra firma. Let's now go to a very, very rare aeroplane. You heard her and you saw her take off before the Kitty Hawk, and you might have thought, not seen one of those before. Indeed, you probably haven't, because she is the only flying example of a de Havilland Mosquito anywhere in the world. There are about a dozen or more in existence in museums in various parts of the world. There are 2 or 3 in England, but Jerry Yagan here at the Military Aviation Museum at Virginia Beach has got the world's only flying example. I don't think Curtis Weeks is amongst us this evening, but Yard Boost sucks to you, I think. We've got the best. We've got the Mosquito. A unique aeroplane, all wooden construction, and great British technology. We think of the Japanese as ruling the roost as far as that's concerned, but in the Second World War, our chemists and scientists were working on laminates to stick bits of wood together. The result was this incredible aircraft. Very lightweight, very, very strong. Designed as a light bomber and reconnaissance aircraft, they were affectionately known as Mozzies by their crews, and the Mozzies flew on numerous operations during the Second World War. Very fast, very agile, very strong, as I say. This particular example was built in Canada by de Havilland, never saw active service, ended up in a field in Alberta where she was just gently going soggy over the years. Built by de Havilland, as I say, bought by the museum in 2004. All the various bits that there were left were taken over to New Zealand, where she was painstakingly restored by experts over there. All the wood in the fuselage, the wings, the tail section, all replaced. The engines, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, are the originals. They've been rebuilt. And then every other bit of the aircraft is original from various collections that have been raided in various parts of the world. In the colours of the Royal New Zealand Air Force 487 Squadron, in tribute to the marvellous restoration work done by those New Zealand engineers, and flying to a fantastic piece of music that I think that every airline should play as the Boeing taxis out to the runway threshold. It would certainly make flying a lot more interesting, and it would appeal to my sense of humour. It is a spine-chilling piece of music that set the scene for the film. It is the de Havilland Mosquito flying to the film from the movie 633 Squadron by Ron Goodwin. Well, how about that then? The theme to the film 633 Squadron was released in 1964, was about the RAF's exploits trying to destroy a German V2 rocket fuel plant at the head of a Norwegian fjord. Based on Frederick Smith's novel, it was the first aviation movie to be shot in colour and in Panavision wide vision. That was a first for the filmmakers in 1964 on that particular movie. What you've just witnessed this evening is a first here in North America and a first in the world since about 1994, because that is the first public display of the Military Aviation Museum's de Havilland Mosquito, and you've been privileged to witness that this evening here at Pungo. Well, that concludes part one of our Flying Proms event this evening here. Have you enjoyed what you've heard and seen so far? Aren't these guys terrific, eh? The Virginia Symphony Orchestra. And the chap at the front, he's not doing a bad job either, is he? The conductor, Benjamin Rouse. Isn't that something, eh? Ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Benjamin Rouse. Welcome back to the second half of the Pungo Flying Proms event for 2013. The penultimate day, as you heard, of the Virginia Arts Festival, so a busy spring and early summer for everyone involved in that. A round of appreciation, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone involved in Virginia Arts here at the beach. Events like that can't happen without their support and patronage and the hard work that goes on. They plan months and months and months in advance for an event like this, obviously. The same is true of everyone here at the Military Aviation Museum at Pungo, the volunteers and the staff who keep these marvellous living history items of aircraft flying for us. What about that intermission, hey? Normally you go to the restroom, you might get a drink if you're lucky, but here you get to touch these aircraft and chat with the pilots. Absolutely fantastic. I'd just like to take a quick minute to welcome on stage all the pilots who've flown in the first half, and for us to show our appreciation for them, for their skill and dedication, and their sense of fun here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the military aviation pilots. I dread to think how many hundreds of years of flying experience these old guys have got between them, but they are fantastically experienced. Military, civil experience, and the time that they give up to fly here. And what an honour. Somebody once said to me, over in England at the Shuttleworth collection where we do the English flying proms, what's the greatest privilege in your life? And one of the pilots said, flying the aircraft of the Shuttleworth collection. And I'm sure the guys here would say the same thing. Of all the aircraft that they've flown in their careers, whether it be professionally or for fun, they don't get much more fun than being here at Pungo on a sunny day like today, do you? Thanks, guys. Well done. Here's to next year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Military Aviation Museum pilots for you. So part two continues with more marvellous music from the VSO, conducted by Benjamin Rouse. And don't forget, at the end of the evening, some fantastic fireworks for the finale. Enjoy the rest of the evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much to the pilots. Thanks to Mark Wall and the Arts Festival, the Military Aviation Museum. I just wanted to let you know we're going on now with music in this second half. Music from the series Band of Brothers followed a group through their World War II saga and has a fantastic suite of music that we play for you now. Music from Band of Brothers. this being the flying proms, we wanted to nod both to the Britishness of certain of these airplanes and also to the actual proms. Of course, the proms being the concerts in England that often, or in fact always, end with a march by Elgar. We're going to do his Pomp and Circumstance number 4. Pomp and Circumstance 1 is the well-known graduation march, so we thought they know that one already. We'll give them one they might not have heard. Pomp and Circumstance number 4 by Elgar. Beautiful piece of music. Now we're going to go on to music. Music from South Pacific. We've got these. Navy aviation planes around, and we thought we'd want to tip our cap to them as well. And this music from South Pacific has a billion great tunes in it, so we thought it would be fun to play tonight. I hope you enjoy.
well now, ladies and gentlemen. Aren't they something, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra? It's been a busy summer for the orchestra. I think, am I right in saying, Ben, this is not only the flying proms, but the last night of the proms? You've got one more performance, have you, this season? He's done so many, he doesn't know.
I can't answer you because it depends how you count.
And I thought musicians had to be good at maths. There you go. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an incredible evening. I think you'll agree, yeah? How many of you have come to Pungo, to the Military Aviation Museum for tonight for the first time? Excellent. Can we tempt you back again in the future? I thought we could. You're thinking to yourself, what's he rambling on about? I thought he promised us some fireworks before we all go home to bed. Well, you're absolutely right. We have got some fireworks coming up. But just before that, I'd like to thank everyone from the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. The amount of talent that there is up here on this stage is absolutely incredible. These ladies and gents get together as the Symphony Orchestra, but in between times they're off working professionally as musicians with other ensembles, and to bring together a group of musicians like this and to get them to perform pitch perfect. And they have been this evening, absolutely incredible. It's a tremendous amount of skill. They make it look and sound so easy, don't they? But we all know that it's not. And I can tell you, VSO, ladies and gents, each and every one of us are really jealous of the talent that you've got. So thank you very much indeed. And Benjamin Rouse, the conductor, hey, he doesn't just stand there waving his arms about. They all look to him, they respect him. Yeah? Oh, methinks I may have opened up a hornet's nest there. And of course, behind the scenes in terms of the stage, you've got the stage crew and the sound crew, the lighting guys and gals who've put all this together. It takes days to put all this up, a lot of effort, and you think how hot it's been the last few days as well. They've really beavered away to get everything up, and of course tomorrow it all comes down again, ready for next time. So thanks to everyone working behind the scenes there. Thank you also to everyone from the Military Aviation Museum for all your hard work, whether you've been a paid staff member, whether you're one of the volunteers, you've worked just tonight or maybe over the past few months to make all this happen. Again, it couldn't have happened without you. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, the whole evening couldn't have happened without you turning up to share it with us. So give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Yes, fantastic. And I'm going to give you a finale that you will remember for a long, long time. Well, actually, I'm not. I'm just going to walk off and watch the fireworks. The VSO, conducted by Benjamin Rouse, are going to provide the music. Some pyrotechnic guys behind you are going to light up the skies with the most fantastic firework finale. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the 2013 Flying Proms. When you leave the site this evening, obviously it's dark, it's an undulating surface. Please watch yourselves as you walk out. A lot of traffic going to leave the site via one exit, so please be patient. Follow the instructions and directions of the marshals as you leave the site. And obviously, please, if you can, take away all your rubbish and things with you and put them in the bins provided. That would be very much appreciated. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Enjoy the fireworks, and here's to next year.